Hey Ange, just run you through a few of the things and a little bit of kind of background information. Here is a foot. Okay, well, but there's a foot. Um, the what it sounds like the podiatrist is talking about is an insertional issue with the plantar fascia. Here's another foot. There we go. Make it smaller. Look, it's a foot. Okay, now the plantar fascia is the structure that runs along the sole of the foot. So if we add that in, this little thing that I've just highlighted in green, called the plantar fascia or plantar aponeurosis, it sounds like we've got an issue down here in the insertion where it attaches into the heel. Now, that plantar fascia is a fairly rigid structure that adds support to the foot. And if we think about where it sits, the foot under normal circumstances sits a bit like that, right? There's this medial arch on this side, and that fascia runs along the sole of the foot, attaching from the heel out into the forefoot, much like that rubber band. Right now, if we think about if the foot is sitting in this position and we roll the foot in, do this thing that we call pronation, right? And you can see this sort of flattening. If we look from the side and we get that same, this arch here going from the heel all the way over here to the big toe joint, if we let that flatten, right, does it make sense that that plantar fascia is now on more length than when it was sitting like that? Because the distance between here and here has increased, right? And so it sounds like there's irritation at that heel attachment point because the foot has been kind of getting into this position and staying there. So that may be just this overpronation. We know there's a bit of a tendency to do that. It may be related partly to the shoes and partly to the pronation and not doing some strength work through the feet and yada, yada, yada. You get the idea. So the first step is to offload that plantar fascia so that it is not getting pulled on all the time, because that insertion point is irritated in some way, shape, or form. Now, what I don't know is it the fascia itself or is it the attachment of the fascia onto the bone? In theory, that should just sort itself out. But there's potentially other things that you might be able to do, including, ice and or some kind of anti-inflammatory, Voltaren gel, that kind of thing, if it is the insertion. But that's probably requires more investigation. Now, if the calf muscles are tight, does it make sense that if the calf muscles are tight, then they are pulling the heel bone backwards and they are creating more length in that plantar fascia? So what we want to do is try and find a way to stretch out the calf muscles without loading that insertion too much. So there is an exercise that which is a calf stretch. Often people get into it like this. They put the foot behind them and they press the heel down. We're not going to do that because this is loading through that plantar fascia in an unsupported way. What we are going to do is start back here, leave the foot that we're trying to stretch flat on the floor, nicely organized of course, but flat on the floor, and we are going to step forwards, lean against the wall, and now I've got calf stretch. Right, so that's one way of doing it. The other way would just be to do a massage into the calf structure directly with a foam roller or a spiky ball, and you can just do that sitting down, put a spiky ball underneath the calf and just glide backwards and forwards, left, right. Okay, other things I want you to do. I want you to do listening feet. So that is this exercise where we start with the foot and we are just letting the foot gently roll in and gently roll out, because what we're trying to do is get these muscles underneath here back to being active. And it sounds like possibly they've gone a little bit inactive. And so this exercise where we gently roll the foot in and roll the foot out, All right, so I'm letting my foot go into pronation, through a neutral position, into inversion or supination. Not really inversion, it's combination, so it's supination, back to neutral. And we can do that in seated position where it's unloaded, and that's where I'd recommend you start. And obviously we can do it in standing. You've done this before. Now it's not flam from one side to the other. I want you to sense as you go, and it's a gentle smush the foot through the ground, all right? Half a dozen, 10 reps, something like that. Do both feet. Other things I want you to do, I want you to ball the foot down, spread the toes, gently draw up through the arches, the longitudinal arches of the foot, draw the toes in, curl and release. Ball the foot down, spread the toes, shorten in the midfoot, draw in through the toes, curl and release. Ball the foot down, spread the toes, draw in through the midfoot, draw in through the toes, curl and release. So ball the foot down, spread the toes, draw in through the midfoot, and you can see there's a gap underneath here now, so the whole foot is kind of domed up. Draw in through the toes and release. That's it. I reckon that's a good start. So offload the structures that are a little bit compromised, means wear the right footwear, all that jazz. We want to do some calf release. If doing the stretch that way, stepping into it is problematic, don't keep going. Go directly into the tissue of the calf to release that. We've got our listening feet, and we've got drag and drops. Let me know if you've got any questions.